Okay, again, it is, excuse me, it is Tuesday night. It is 8 p.m. It is here on the east side of the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, and again, we're starting out with a cold opening. Tonight, you're going to get a lot of information. Some of it may be fairly disturbing. So I want to warn everybody that if you have children, this is not the show that you want them to be here for. Get the cat off of here. Come on. There you go. Okay. So, with that, you've been warned, and we will go on with the show. Okay. Once again, it is Tuesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, therefore it is the Rabbis Discuss. And as we have been doing, we are keeping up on what's going on in Israel. Rabbi Ancel is feeling better and has joined us, so let's bring him on right now. You are on, sir.
Good evening and happy Hanukkah.
And Chodesh Tov.
Yes.
Chodesh Tov to Tevet starts this evening. Or did start this evening at sundown. Okay. So again, we're, let's see who we got in the chat room. Mendel, Crystal, and Richard, so far. And if you're watching in the background, say hello to my sisters. So anyway, as we have been doing, we're going to bringing people up to date on what's going on in Eretz Israel. And again, some of the information is going to be a bit disturbing. So we've warned everybody at the beginning. So, speaking of that, how are you feeling?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you. Yeah, you weren't here last week, and that was because you were
feeling much better.
Yeah, you were
feeling much better. I went to the doctor. He just said that's just the flu.
Yeah. So everybody was asking last week about you and how you were doing and everything. So
I really appreciate it.
Give them a quick update. Let them know that you are vertical and taking nourishment. Okay, so let us get the. I'm just catching up on the chat room, so let us get into this. We have a lot of ground to cover tonight. Want to cover basically what is currently going on in Eretz Israel, and that is not what I wanted. Okay, so as many of you know, that Gadi Edelman is a very good friend of ours. And he's actually been on the show a number of times, and he is in Eretz Israel now, volunteering and helping out there. And he has been reporting from the ground. I have been reposting his kind of daily updates. Today he was saying that as of, I think he said it was like noon their time. And he said they had already had 6 rocket attacks, 3 from the south and 3 from the north. So, again, let's, this is a, more than they're used to, but this is kind of a daily event in Eretz Israel. I mean, it's not something that, unfortunately, that they are used to. The rocket attacks and having to run for the shelters and stuff like that. I don't know of any other country that would tolerate that kind of stuff, but anyway, so this is from Arut Sheva. This is from let's see. This was published on December 10th, and it is. Let's see. Do we have a attribution here? No, we don't. So we assume it's from the staff writers. So the war against Hamas in Gaza has entered its 10th week on Saturday, more than 2 months after Hamas massacred over 1,200 people in southern Israel and took 240 hostages on the morning of October 7th on Simchat Torah. The IDF announced that over Saturday, IDF ground, aerial, and naval forces continued to strike terrorist infrastructure in the Gaza Strip, striking over 250 terror targets. In recent hours, IDF, again, this was on the 10th, recent hours, IDF troops located and destroyed weapons caches, carried out targeted raids on military sites, destroyed underground terror tunnel shafts, and thwarted armed terrorist cells planning to attack IDF troops. So let's kind of get a count of, this is just from Gaza. This is not counting what's going on from Hezbollah. So on Tuesday, last Tuesday, there was, let's see, starting at 1:10 p.m. and carrying on until 3 p.m. Well, actually, till actually it started much earlier. Let's see. Okay, so anyway, Tuesday there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rocket attacks against Israel, starting at 11:45 a.m. and ending shortly after 3 p.m. Monday, starting at 11:29 a.m., we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 rocket attacks on Israel, starting at 2 o'clock in the morning and running all the way until 9 p.m. that evening, pretty much throughout the day. Sunday, starting at, well, let's see, when did it start on Sunday? Sunday at 12:50 p.m. Or actually 1:10 p.m. Anyway, so Sunday, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12. Okay, 12 rocket attacks. And again, all from the south. This doesn't include the ones that are coming in from Hezbollah in the north. So we move to Saturday, which is the day that this actually was actually published. At that point, there had been 2 rocket attacks at the time that this was actually published. Also on Saturday, IDF troops battling towards terrorists in Gaza engaged in close combat with terrorists in Jebel and discovered weapons hidden in a school in Sujaiyam, as well as weapons hidden inside a teddy bear. There's actually a video online you can actually go to see that, where IDF was going through and finding this teddy bear. They actually ripped it open and found weapons inside.
They found weapons in the mosque. Also.
Oh yeah, weapons in the mosque, weapons in the hospitals, weapons under children's beds. I mean, they're hiding weapons everywhere. So sirens sounded in Halzah, Elumim, Mephasalim, Magil, Nir, Yitzhak, Kafar, Azah, Nir Oz, Ein, Shosha, Nirim, and Niram, and the Niram firing range. So again,
my question is, why, if they're shooting these rockets, why can't they locate those sites?
Well, I'm assuming that because of the rockets that they're firing, I assume the Qassam is the big rocket, I believe. So the smaller rocket, the Kadushas.
Yeah, you can find them from anywhere. Yes.
Exactly. That's the thing. They're mobile. That's you can fire, and within a few minutes you can be out of the area completely. So, it's hard to pinpoint those kinds of things, and things like rocket propelled grenades and stuff like that, which are handheld, and they can be fired and moved right away. So it's hard to pinpoint those. I mean, basically, Israel's doing a good job of it, but it's hard. It is really hard. So going along, you were asking about the mosques. Again, this is from Arut Sheva. This was dated the 11th, which would have been yesterday. Hamas RPG, rocket-propelled grenade, training site found inside a mosque. Weapons found inside UNRWA bags found in mosque. Okay, bags supplied by the UN. Okay, IDF soldiers uncovered a room used for RPG training of terrorists inside a mosque in Jabalia. Is that how you pronounce that?
Jabalia.
Jabalia. Nahal Brigade soldiers also found weapons, including rifles, grenades, cartridges, etc. Some of them inside UNRWA bags. Earlier, the IDF revealed that overnight, the Jerusalem Brigade, in cooperation with intelligence, ground, and air forces, thwarted an attempt by Hamas for an attack on IDF troops and destroyed a tunnel shaft. Hamas attacked on a location where IDF troops were taking cover and was thwarted. IDF soldiers targeted terrorists who came out of the tunnel shaft and destroyed it. Due to the precise intelligence and vigilance of the soldiers, the terrorists were targeted and the underground tunnel route was destroyed. Speaking of tunnels, last week there was an unconfirmed report. I'm going to state that right off the bat. It was unconfirmed, but it was picked up by the Israeli news agencies that Egypt had started flooding the tunnels with seawater from the south. There was also an unconfirmed report today that Israel is flooding the tunnels, or at least starting to flood the tunnels from the north. So
it was confirmed.
Pardon?
It was confirmed that they have already started putting
Well,
seawater, salt
now,
seawater into the tunnels.
yeah. See, now, it's it wasn't. It's not confirmed by any legitimate source. Let's put it that way. Wall Street Journal actually published this. So did another news agencies actually published this. However, when all of them talked to the IDF said these operations are classified. Would not deny it. Would not admit to it. So these reports remain unconfirmed. So regardless of what the press is telling you, they're unconfirmed. But it does make sense. I mean, and it's actually, kudos to Egypt for if they are flooding the tunnels from the south. If Israel is flooding from the north, they're basically they're driving the rats out of the tunnels. That's what it amounts to. That's what you do. You flood the tunnels, and the rats come rushing out. So, okay, so again, we keep hearing all of this stuff about the innocent Palestinians. These poor innocent Palestinians who did nothing, and they're just trying to live a peaceful life, and how Israel is just killing them. So I wanted to get a little better information on just exactly what the Palestinians think. So I actually saw this, Mark Levine actually was talking about this over the weekend. He quoted from a Arab site. I got the name of it, and I went in to research it, and this is what I found: that this is a new market research conducted by the Arab World for Research and Development. This is AWRAD. That's the agency. This story, which is pretty much the same as I've seen on all the other sites. I just kind of grabbed it from Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs. It is attributed to Lieutenant Colonel retired Maurice Hirsch. This was published back in November 22nd, which is when the report actually came out, or the poll, I guess you would call it. So, among the Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip and Judea and Samaria, giving a penetrating insight into the mindset of the Palestinians, or these so-called Palestinians, and the Palestinian Authority. The results of the survey show that the Palestinians overwhelmingly support terrorism, reject peace, and are fundamentally ungrateful towards the countries that have supported and funded them. The Palestinian attitudes reflected in the survey do not grow in a vacuum. I think that's what it actually meant to say. Instead, they are representative of the complete adoption of the constant and poisonous messaging of the Palestinian Authority. They are an accurate, albeit bleak and painful reflection of the total implosion of the Oslo paradigm. That referring to the Oslo Accords, which the PA broke within hours, as they have with every other one. If the international community truly seeks peace in the Middle East and a bright future for all its residents, policies must change, and a new paradigm must be adopted. As Israel's war on Palestinian terror continues, again, this is back in November, the following are selected results from the Arad survey. I actually read the Arad survey. This is a good representation of it. In fact, one of the sources I checked this against was actually Al Jazeera. Okay? Now, Al Jazeera is not known for being real pro-Israel. Let's put it that way. But they did bear out this. They actually, in some cases, actually do some real journalism. But here's what came out of this. When it takes as a whole, the results indicate that the overwhelming percentage of Palestinians supported the October 7th massacre at a 75%. Okay, 75. They reject coexistence with Israel, reject it completely, at 85.9%. Are committed to the restoration of historical Palestine, which really there isn't any, as a final resolution. Now, where else have we heard that terminology before? The final resolution, the final solution. Anyway, at 71.1%, and support the creation of a Palestinian state from the river to the sea, 74.7%. Tell me again about all these innocent Palestinians, right? As the end of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, increasingly, there are more support for the October 7th massacre from the Palestinian residents in Judea and Samaria at 83.1%. Than those residing in Gaza, which is 63.6%. Now you can understand Gazans be, a little less supportive of the October 7th because, Israel has lowered the boom on them. But Judea and Samaria, they're rabidly supporting them.
Actually, I watched Al Jazeera, and they're the ones who confirmed that they started to flood the tunnels. And I tend sometimes to believe Al Jazeera, although like you said, they're not always on the side of Israel, but they tell it like it is.
Yeah, it's like I said, they do some real journalism as opposed to the Western media. Again, this was what I'm reading now was actually bared out by Al Jazeera. Some of the other stories that that we have in line tonight, I actually confirmed them with Al Jazeera, just to see the difference between the way the two were portrayed. Al Jazeera is actually the one that broke the story of the rocket attack on the hospital. Being an errant rocket that was actually fired by Islamic Jihad in the south, and that went astray and did not strike the hospital, struck a parking structure next door, and rather than the 600 people that Hamas and the rest of the Western media was grabbing onto and reporting all over the place, Al Jazeera was saying, "Hey, wait! We saw this actually launched. We saw it hit." It didn't hit the hospital, and the death toll is like 50. So, yes, as a confirmation, I'll go with Al Jazeera if I'm really looking for confirmation on certain things. Okay. That way people can't say, well, you're just getting the one-sided from Israel, and they're going to lie about it. Well, Al Jazeera has absolutely no reason to lie, and if they're saying these are the percentages, and the agency that actually took the survey says these are the percentages, I have to believe it. Okay, so let's see. The Palestinian positive perception of the terror organizations remain high, despite their role in carrying out the massacre and the disastrous results. Breaking down the response, 76% believe that Hamas plays a somewhat to very positive role. 84% believe that Palestinian Islamic Jihad plays a somewhat to very positive role. 79.8 believe that Fatah's terror ring, the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade, plays a somewhat very positive role, and 88.6 believe that Hamas's armed wing, the Al-Qassam Brigade, plays a somewhat to very positive role. Okay, so when asked about U.S. and Western support for Israel against the terrorists, 91.5% agree that the attitude that support is the result of the influence of the Israeli lobby. 85.5% agree that the support is the result of hatred of Arabs. And 79.5% agree with the belief that the support is a result of hatred of Muslims and Islam. Pick a lane, people, pick a lane. Palestinian rejects a hand that feeds them, that supports them. Basically, they're the largest welfare country or welfare people on the face of the earth. And they have been for a very long time, as opposed to the perceived positive role played by the terror organizations, and notwithstanding the political and financial support the Palestinians receive from the U.S. and Western countries, 98.2% of Palestinians see the U.S. role as unfavorable. 96.7% consider the U.K. role as negative, and 92.6% ascertain the EU role as unfavorable. Along with the disdain for the U.S. and Western countries, the Palestinians also believe that moderate Arab countries also play a negative role. According to the Palestinians, the United Arab Emirates plays the most negative role, 96%, followed by Saudi Arabia, 95.9%, Egypt, 86.4%, and Jordan, 75.6%. All these countries have made peace with Israel or consider the possibility. Again, we have to go back to Trump and the Abraham Accords for that. So, okay, let's see. So the Palestinians reject the Palestinian Authority and Fatah. While support for the terror organizations is high at 87.3% of the Palestinians believe, or 87.3% of the Palestinians believe that the Palestinian Authority plays a negative role. Only 23.2% believe that Fatah plays a positive role. Fatah and PA are on their way out. Well, Israel's going to make sure of that, but they were losing their grip very quickly, and Hamas was gaining a lot of support. When asked who should govern the Gaza Strip and the areas in Judea, Samaria that are under the controls of the PA, only 8.4% supported the PA in comparison with 85.8% support Hamas continue to play a role in the Palestinian government. This should tell you all you need to know about the innocent Palestinians. When asked who will emerge victorious from this war, 72.6% said Palestine would, while only 3.1% said Israel, which means the remainder didn't know or wouldn't say. 74.3% expect the war to end with a Palestinian victory that achieves the liberation of Gaza from Israeli invasion. Yeah.
And the world to come, yes.
Yeah, okay. So now we've seen what the Palestinians think about what's going on. So let's talk about these hostages. Now, information has been slowly dripping out from information from these from the hostages that have returned about how they were kept in captivity. Again, this particular article was one of those ones I checked against Al Jazeera, and found it to be very, the numbers and the things that they were saying were actually the very same things. The tilt of the articles are Al Jazeera is a little more one way and Israel is a little more the other way, which you can understand. But the facts of the article are exactly the same. This was taken from the Jewish Chronicle. This was dated, if I can find a date, December 1st. And it was by David Isaac. Okay, so let me take that up a little bit so I can read it. Okay, this is from the Jewish news source. Israeli hostages recovering from captivity in Gaza have largely kept out of the public eye, but accounts slowly reaching the press from their family members point to a widespread abuse by Hamas and horrendous treatment by the terror group. Hostages report having been beaten, threatened with death, underfed, kept in cages, and denied medical care. Elma Avraham, 84, who had health issues, was taken hostage from Kibbutz Nahal Az on October 7th, the day of the Hamas attack. Although in generally good health when captured, she deteriorated in captivity. Released on November 26th, she had a pulse of 40 and a body temperature of 27 degrees. Now, that's centigrade. So, what's 27 degrees centigrade compared to Fahrenheit? Ancel, you can make those calculations quick.
27 plus 27 plus 32.
Okay.
So that's 54 plus. That's not bad.
Less than 90 degrees?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the normal temperature of a human body is 98.6.
Correct.
Excuse me. Okay. So her temperature is like 10 degrees below what is normal. Almost.
They were in the tunnels.
Yeah. I mean, it would be fairly close to going into, what do you call it? I can't think of the term now. It just flew right out of my head. Excuse me while I wet my whistle here. Okay, so they held her in terrible conditions. Daughter Tali Amano said, "We stood at the entrance with a package of medication for her. My mother didn't need to return this way, and I have no idea how she will make it through these days." IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari said she was denied life-saving medications, which is a war crime. She was not visited by the Red Cross. Of course, the Red Cross doesn't really give a shit anyway. Ditsa Hyman, 84, who was kidnapped by Hamas from Kibbutz near Oz, was similarly neglected. The kidnappers took my mother to the attic of an unfinished building inside Gaza. She was hidden there completely alone, without other hostages, and was trapped inside the building. Her son Gideon told Channel 12, I-12, in the cold, without running water, electricity, and very little food. I will not go into detail about the hygiene that was there. Think about the worst possible, and then worse than that, he said. Once or twice a day, one of the kidnappers came to her, served her food, and left. During all these days, she did not receive any medical treatment, nor could she ask for it because the kidnappers did not speak Hebrew or English, he added. Female hostages were kept in cages. The Hostages and Missing Families Forum, a group set up in the wake of the attack revealed on Monday. Children were marked with a burn lest they escape, according to Yaniv Yaakov, the uncle of the brother, or 16, and Yagil 12, who were freed on November 27. Every child that Hamas took was taken on a motorcycle, and they took the child and put their leg in front of the exhaust pipe, which caused a burn, to mark the children so that in case they ran away or fled, they could find them, he said. Again, a war crime. A Thai hostage who was released told Israel's Channel 12 that the Jewish captives were beaten with electrical cables and that Israeli hostages were treated worse than the others, he said. Eitan Yahalomi, 12, a dual Israeli-French citizen, was released on Monday, 52 days after his abduction. His aunt, Deborah Cohen, told France's BMF TV that he was forced to watch footage of the massacre. Every time the child cried there, they would threaten them with a weapon to keep them quiet. Once they got to Gaza, all the civilians, everyone was hitting them. We're talking about a child, 12 years old, his aunt said. Maybe I was naive, but I wanted to hope that Hamas, were treating him well. She said, I was wrong. They are monsters. Tom Hand, the father of Irish-Israeli Emily Hand, a 9-year-old who was among 13 Israeli hostages freed on November 25th, said she was shockingly pale, her face hollowed out, and her head full of lice. The most shocking, disturbing part of meeting her was that she just whispered. You couldn't hear her. I had to put my ear to her lips, he told CNN on Tuesday. She'd been conditioned not to make any noise. She learned after her return that her second mom had been killed by Hamas. Her mother died of cancer when she was 2. Last night she cried until her face was red and blotchy. She couldn't stop. She didn't want any comfort. I guess she'd forgotten how to be comforted, Hand said. She went under the covers of the bed, the quilt, covered herself up, and quietly cried. Like the other hostages, she was poorly fed, given rice, water, and pita bread. There were days when they barely had any food. In the last few days, they only ate very little rice. Mavar Mor Mundar, cousin of Karen Mundar, 53, who was released on November 24th, told Israel's Channel 12. Israel has demanded that Hamas allow the Red Cross access to the captives. Hamas continued to deny the Red Cross access to the remaining 143 hostages in violation of every norm of humanity, said the Prime Minister's office spokesman Elyon Levy on Thursday. We're talking about people who were brutally abducted into the Gaza Strip, some with horrific injuries. Actually, there's a article in the Rutz Sheva about the forensics team that are trying to determine who is still alive and who is not, based on videos and pictures and stuff like that, about the condition that they were in when they were taken, determining which ones were not likely to survive very long, and it's actually a very disturbing article. We're already seeing hostages returning, some in critical condition, others held there without medication, he said, and they must be given access to medical treatment. Again, a war crime. Hamas also forced hostages to write glowing letters on their condition under which they were held. One letter distributed widely by Arab media and the Western media was written by Daniela Aloni, who was kidnapped with her daughter Amelia, 3, or is that 3 or 5? That is 5, and returned on November 26th. In it, she thanked Hamas for its extraordinary humanity towards her daughter. Israel media has warned the public to ignore such propaganda. Of the 143 hostages still held by Hamas, 28 are women, 117 are men. 10 of the hostages are aged 73 or older, among them husbands of women already released. 105 hostages were released in small batches over the week, in which Israel agreed to halt in the fighting for the sake of their return. On Friday, Hamas violated the ceasefire, of course, and the hostilities began again. They don't want the rest of them released because they don't want them to know what happened. They don't want the world to know what happened, what these people went through. So again, these poor, innocent Israeli citizens. Marshall says 27 degrees centigrade is 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 16 degrees below normal. Hypothermia, that's what I was trying to remember. That's getting to the range of a person going into hypothermia. Okay, so anyway, this next article comes from the front page again. What about all the innocent Palestinians and these numbers that keep coming out about all the children that are being murdered by Israeli soldiers and stuff? Okay, this again comes from the front page. It was released on December 7th by Robert Spencer. It's called "Everybody is Upset About Civilian Casualties in Gaza." But where do the numbers come from? That's a key thing. Okay, Israeli defensive actions in Gaza has become, we are told, a massive humanitarian crisis and must stop. All the most trustworthy people in the world tell us so. The United States is unequivocal. International humanitarian law must be respected. Too many innocent Palestinians have been killed, declared punitive Vice President Kamala Harris on Saturday. Frankly, the scale of civilian suffering and the images and videos coming from Gaza are devastating. Don't forget about what they call Pallywood. These made-up pictures. They're all posed. Then on Monday, the Associated Press, with a fine regard for journalism, journalistic objectivity, reported that Senator Bernie Sanders, an independent... he's a communist. Let's just face facts. He's a communist. And what it called a robust group of Democratic senators were done asking nicely for... Yeah, they're asking nicely. Yeah. What business do they have saying anything to Israel?
None.
Yeah, exactly. They're done asking nicely for Israel to do more to reduce civilian casualties in Gaza. These fearless Salons warned President Joe Biden National Security Team that planned U.S. aid to Israel must be met with assurances of concrete steps from Israel. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, hard right government, Sanders thundered. The truth is that if asking nicely worked, we wouldn't be in the position we are today. AP added, it was the Associated Press, it was time for the United States to use its substantial leverage with its ally, the Vermont senators said. I need to blow that up a little bit. Okay, that's better. Okay, to buttress their indignation and increasingly shrill demands, Harris and Sanders and the rest can look to no less an authority than the United Nations. The UN Office for Coordination of Human Affairs, the OCHA, on Sunday published a chart of reported casualties in Gaza. And the numbers looked grim indeed, over 15,523 deaths and 4,275 women and 6,387 children, making up fully 70% of this figure. Seems a little skewed, doesn't it? The far left establishment media is putting out substantially the same figures. The UK's Guardian wrote Tuesday that in the last 3 days, bombing has been heavy and the total death toll since the 7th of October has risen to 15,899. These figures do not only arouse the righteous indignation of our nation's leftist, self-appointed voices of conscience, but they moved the anti-Semitic UN's review to heights of hysteria. We are certainly witnessing the greatest televised slaughter of helpless civilians in the history of the world, with nothing even remotely comparable coming to mind.
Wow.
Oh my, that sounds terrible indeed, says the writer. But let's step back for a moment. If you follow an asterisk down to the small print, you'll see that the UN attributes its figures to Palestinian casualties in Gaza to the Ministry of Health and the Government Media Office. Which Ministry of Health? Which government? The UN doesn't say. And it's reticent on the point is likely due to the fact that the government and the health ministry in question are those of Hamas in Gaza. The Guardian likewise attributes its figures to the Gaza Ministry of Health. Yes, that's right, the one that Hamas runs. This would be like the New York Times during World War II reporting massive German civilian deaths in an Allied offensive and attributing its data to Joseph Goebbels' propaganda ministry. Hamas obviously has good reason to inflate the numbers of Palestinian casualties. The higher the number, the angrier Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders and Anthony Blinken get. And the closer the Biden regime moves to cutting ties with Israel and isolating the Jewish state completely. You had something to say?
Yeah, the Three Stooges. One is the camel, one is Sanders, the communist.
Yeah.
And the United Nazis.
This will come to no one's surprise, at least not to anyone who isn't a woke millennial TikToker, but Hamas is obviously lying. A board member of the media watchdog Honest Reporting, who goes by the single name of Eisenberg, took a close look at the day-to-day casualty figures that the UN published from Hamas and found a large number of significant anomalies. It is immediately obvious, notes Eisenberg, that Hamas does not report any combat deaths, and the numbers amazingly seem to indicate that IDF bombs and bullets disproportionately hit women and children and elderly. The IDF cannot seem to hit too many fighting-age men. But also, the numbers are faked. On October 19th, for example, the total casualty number increased by 307 from 3,478 to 3,785. Yet, at the same time, the total number of children killed went from 853 to 1,542, an increase of 671. Nor was that the only time that such a thing happened. on October 26th, the total number of casualties increased by 481, while the number of children casualties went up by 625. Clearly, the Hamas Ministry of Health in Gaza is not too concerned that people will study these numbers closely. The idea is simply to shock and appall people with Israel's alleged inhumanity, and that is working well enough. The likes of Kamala Harris and Bernie Sanders may fall for this. No reasonable person should. Oh.
Amazing.
Isn't it? Isn't it? So here's another article. This came from Ynet News. It's from the Health and Science section. Oh, don't do this to me. Okay, there we go. Okay, I was going to say, I think it was going to block me out here. It's called Shadows of Children. This was written by, Aaron Porras of the Media Line. Okay, so it's called Shadows of Children. Hospital chief speaks of torment suffered by young hostages. The CEO of Israel's main children's hospital, which cared for 19 released child hostages, says that after almost 2 months of near starvation, the youngsters are weak, but it is their psychological scars that will be hardest to heal. The children released from Hamas, and again, I don't know why I don't just put these sizes up when I put them up in the first place, instead of making you wait while I adjust it. Okay, the children released from Hamas captivity during last month's ceasefire may have appeared at first glimpse to be relatively unharmed. Remember last week we went into the article about how Hamas had loaded these people up with vitamins and had drugged them prior to their release to make them compliant and make them look healthy. But they look like shadows of children and are suffering psychological scars that will be difficult to heal. Dr. Efrat Harlev, CEO of Israel's Schneider's Children's Medical Center, told a news conference at the Israeli government's media headquarters in Tel Aviv earlier this week. Schneider's, Israel's main children's hospital, cared for 19 children aged 3 to 18, 6 mothers and 1 grandmother who had been abducted by Hamas terrorists during their murderous rampage on October 7th, and spent nearly 2 months as hostages in the Gaza Strip. Harlev said on Monday all the children had lost 15% or more of their weight in captivity due to being fed near starvation diets, and many showed signs of muscular atrophy. Some needed help just to get up from a chair, Harlev said. Even when they were given food, the children barely touched it. They were eating such small bites, Harlev said, and when their parents asked them, "Why aren't you eating?" they said, "We have to save it for later." This is something that we see often with that we saw often with Holocaust survivors. Mm-hmm. Some of the idiosyncratic kind of things that they developed because they were denied so much. If you've ever seen the movie When Do We Eat? Wonderful movie, very funny movie. Jack Klugman plays the grandfather in there. He is a Holocaust survivor. He is a one who survived the camps. He always carries around with him a suitcase with everything that he needs. Wherever he goes, he always has that suitcase with him. And again, this is some of those things that we've seen from various Holocaust survivors. There's one that could not buy enough underwear. I mean, the man just had drawers and drawers full of them. This is taking control again from a situation they had absolutely no control. But anyway, back to the article. She said the psychological scars will be the most difficult to heal. At first, the children would only speak in whispers, if at all. More than anything, they are all learned that they had to be quiet at all times. They could not laugh or cry or speak, Aryel said. They would also be fearfully ask permission for everything, from taking a shower to going to the bathroom to looking out the window or even opening a drawer. Hamas tormented them psychologically every day, Aryel said. We heard it from every one of them that they did not believe they would survive or that anyone was looking for them. That there was no Israel. This is one of the things that Hamas was telling them constantly. There is no more Israel. Nobody is coming to look for you. There is no Israel anymore to even return to, and they would all die in the tunnels together. Even now that they're home, it will take time for the children to believe that they are safe, Aryel said. These children were not left unharmed as innocent bystanders. They were deliberately hurt by Hamas. This is not a legitimate act of war. This is a war crime. Oy. I'm not taking a break tonight. Okay, so how is the world reacting to this? Well, let's look at just the United States and see what's going on here. What the reaction is to the attack on Israel and the Israeli war against Hamas. So, the October 7th attack, again, this one comes from the front page. It came out December 11th, which was yesterday, by Victor Davis Hansen. Excuse me. How were the universities lost? It's titled. The October 7th attacks exposed our institutions of higher learning as incubators of primordial hatred. After October 7th, the public was shocked at what they saw and heard on America's campuses. Americans knew previously that they were intolerant, left-wing, and increasingly meritocracy. But immediately after October 7th, and even before the response of the Israeli Defense Forces, the sheer student delight on news of mass murdering of Israeli victims seemed akin more to 1930s Germany than contemporary America. Indeed, not a day goes by when the university professor or student group has not spouted anti-Semitic hatred. Often they threatened and attacked Jewish students or engaged in mass demonstrations calling for the extinction of Israel. Why and how did purportedly enlightened universities become incubators of such primordial hate? After the George Floyd riots in 2020, repertory admissions, the effort to admit diverse students beyond their numbers in the general population increased. Elite universities like Stanford and Yale boasted that their so-called white incoming student numbers had plunged to between 20 and 40%, despite whites making up 68 to 70% of the general population. The abolition of the SAT requirement. I mean, most of us that are older remember, you got to do good on that SAT. If you don't do good on that SAT, you cannot get into a good college. Well, that's no more. That's gone. the abolition of the SAT requirement, and often the comparative ranking of high school grade point averages have ended the ancient and time-proven idea of meritocracy, meriting to get into a higher education or whatever. Brilliant high school transcripts and test scores no longer warrant admission to so-called elite schools. One result was that the number of Jews has nosedived from 20 to 30% of Ivy League student bodies during the 1970s and 80s to 10 to 15%. Jewish students are also currently stereotyped as white and privileged, and thus considered as fair game on campus. At the same time, the number of foreign students, especially from the oil-rich Middle East, has soared on campuses. Most are subsidized by their homeland governments. They pay the full, non-discounted tuition rates to cash-hungry universities. A huge number of students have entered universities who would not have been admitted by the very standards universities until recently claimed were vital to ensure their own competitiveness and prestige. Consequently, they are no longer the guardians of top-flight undergraduates and professionals from their graduate programs. Faculty are faced with a new lose-lose-lose choices of either diminishing their course requirements or inflating their grades or facing charges of diversity, equity, and inclusion commissars. DEI, or if we were going to be truthful about it, let's switch it around and call it diversity, inclusion, and equity, which is DIE. A systematic basis on their grading are all three combined. The net result is that now there are thousands of students from abroad, especially from the Middle East, far fewer Jewish students, and student bodies who demand radical changes in faculty standards and coursework to accommodate their unease with past standards and expected student achievement. And presto, an epidemic of anti-Semitism naturally followed. In such a vacuum, advocacy studies classes proliferated along with faculty to teach them. Gender, Black, Latino, feminist, Asian, queer, trans, peace, environmental, and green studies courses demand far less from students, and arbitrary select such as oppressed and other oppressors, the former victims, are then given a blank check to engage in a racist and anti-Semitic behavior without consequence. Proving to be politically correct in these, let me just make a point here. They say that anti-Semitism has risen in the United States something like almost 400%. And I've said this many times before, anti-Semitism has not risen. It's always been there. It's just now that it's politically correct and nobody's afraid to say it. Some universities blacklist, circulate warning marginalized students which professors they should avoid who still cling to supposedly outdated standards regarding exam taking, deadlines, and absences. All these radical changes explain that current spectacle of angry students citing grievances and poorly educated graduates who have had little coursework in traditional history, literature, philosophy, logic, or other traditional sciences. Universities and students have plenty of money to continue their weaponization of the universities, given their enormous tax-free endowment income, nearly $2 trillion and government-subsidized student loans are issued without accountability or reasonable demands that they can be repaid in a timely fashion. Exceptions and exemptions are the Bible of terrified and careerist administrators. Faced with an epidemic of anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic university administrators now claim that they can do little to curb the hatred. But privately, they know should the targets of a similar hatred be instead blacks, gays, Latinos, or women, then they would be expelled. They would expel the haters in a nanosecond. Ultimately the result of the elite campus giving 70-80% of their students as becoming hotbeds of dangerous anti-Semitism and watered-down curricula that cannot turn out educated students. The Ivy League and their kindred so-called elite campuses may soon go the way of Disney and Bud Light. Let's hope so. I mean, they're already losing billions of dollars in donations. People are pulling their kids out of these schools. The Ivy League no longer is elite. So anyway, back to the article. They think that such a crash in their reputations is impossible, giving centuries of accustomed stature. But their erosion is already occurring and accelerating. At the present time, a Stanford law degree, a Harvard political science major, and a Yale social science BA will soon scare off employers and the general public at large. These certificates will signify not proof of humanity, knowledge, and decency, but rather undeserved self-importance, vacuousness, and fanaticism, and all to be avoided rather than courted. Now, we've seen the recent hearings, congressional hearings, with the heads of Harvard and Penn State and MIT, where none of them could say that the call for genocide against Jews was against their code of ethics or their code of conduct. After the hearings, there was such an outcry at Penn State that the head was actually, and the head of the Board of Regents, I believe, they were forced to resign. Harvard, on the other hand, doubled down. They put out a statement today saying that no, they were going to keep the what was her name, Ms. Gay, which is her last name. That she was the person to lead them into the future, and yeah, what a future it's going to be. Okay, so not only the universities though. This comes from Arut Sheva. This one is titled, this came out at yesterday at 4 o'clock. Oakland, California teachers stage teach-in to vilify Israel. Okay, this isn't a university. This is Oakland high schools. Okay, 100 teachers hold event presenting Palestinian side to teach children the fact in wake of the October 7th massacre. About 100 teachers in Oakland, California held an unauthorized teach-in for students from kindergarten to third grade. This is Hamas tactics. This is what we see in the UN schools in Gaza, where Hamas comes in and teaches these kids to hate, little kids, kindergarten, first, second, third grade, to hate the Jews, to put on plays where they dress up as jihadists and Israeli citizens, and they slit the Israeli citizens' throats and talk about dying in jihad and stuff. This is the same kind of crap Of course, as California, we shouldn't be surprised by anything that comes out of the Soviet Socialist Republic of California. Among the materials presented during the teach-in was a video in which a woman claimed that her grandmother was expelled from her home in 1948. Not true. In other material taught at the teach-in, an Arab character said, "A group of bullies called Zionists wanted our land, so they stole it by force and hurt many people. The Zionists never gave us the opportunity to return to Palestine, even though we still had the keys to our homes," the character said. The event was organized by teachers who claimed that they felt that the authorized material being taught in their schools was too one-sided in Israel's favor. The Oakland Unified School District Superintendent Kayla Johnson Trammell issued a memo 2 days before the teach-in, warning parents that it would be in violation of school board policy, which states that the teachers must ensure that all sides of a controversial issue are impartially presented with adequate and appropriate factual information. "I am deeply disappointed." Oh, deeply disappointed. Oh, she must hurt so bad. "I am deeply disappointed by the harmful and divisive materials being circulated and promoted as factual," Johnson Trammell wrote. Did I lose Ancel? You back with us again?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Let me get back to the article here. The Jewish residents and parents of students in Oakland reacted with outrage to the teacher's deliberate presentation of anti-Israel propaganda as fact 2 months after the Hamas terrorist organization committed the worst massacre of Jewish people since the Nazi Holocaust. Dr. Oleg Ivanov accused the teachers of relying on cherry-picked information to present a biased picture. "All this does is exacerbate existing tensions already in our community. This is the way to scapegoat Jews in America for something that is happening halfway around the world," he said. Oakland, California's City Council was the site of a series of anti-Semitic speeches on November 27th, when during a vote on a resulting calling for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, when does a city have the nerve to tell a country what to do? Man, this is just so crazy. During the vote on a resulting calling for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, anti-Israel activists denied that Hamas committed the massacre on October 7th, even though there were tons of videos showing them actually doing it, taped by them, and claimed that Israel murdered its own citizens to justify its military operation in Gaza, while claiming that it is racist to call Hamas a terrorist organization and justifying Hamas's right to engage in violence against Israel. Again, this is California. I am not surprised. Also in Oakland, a Jewish woman was harassed by employees of a coffee shop for complaining of anti-Semitic graffiti in the restroom. In a video she took of the incident, in the restroom mirror and walls had been defaced with carvings saying, "Zionism equals racism, free Palestine, and your neutrality is enabling genocide." Oh, can you believe
Unbelievable.
It's just... Oh, it's just bizarre. I mean, this world is just, oh God. And then so now we got Rashid Talibi, unfortunately from Michigan, which is where I live, equating what's going on in Gaza to the Armenian massacre. Representative Talibi claims that the Armenian and Palestinian peoples face similar struggles against unjust expulsion from their land. Armenians were basically massacred by Muslims. Let's be truthful. Okay. The American Armenian Political Action Committee thanked Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, whoever, idiot, Democrat Michigan, for meeting them and shared a picture with her representatives of the Armenian Church in Washington. Oh, these people must be out of their minds. The pact claimed that it stands beside other groups to have struggled with oppression and historically and today. Learning about other subjects and teaching subjects of our own is crucial in building civil rights, immigrant rights, refugee rights, and social justice. Here we go. Social justice for all. Tlaib spread false information that the deaths of the Shifa hospital in Gaza were caused by Israeli airstrike when they were in fact caused by a failed Palestinian Islamic Jihad Palestinian rocket launch, blamed President Joe Biden for supporting genocide against Palestinians, and was formally rebuked by Congress for spreading misinformation and incitement against Israel. And it took him forever to do it, too. Incitement against Israel and direct calls to destroy Israel and its population. Tlaib claims the expulsion of Armenians from Jerusalem in modern times is similar to the expulsion of Palestinians. The background for her statement is a dispute that began many years ago when a 99-year lease was granted in the Armenian quarter of Jerusalem for the development of a new luxury hotel in the area. According to the hearing recently held in Jerusalem court regarding the land, the parking lot, and the land in the old city of Jerusalem on approximately 11,500 square meters, including the parking lot, the land has been held by the Armenian Patriarchy, which also claims that they hold it in trust for all members of the Armenian community. Several members of the community have stated their dissatisfaction with this and sued against the policy requiring them to pay hundreds of shekels every month for the parking, while in practice the lot serves only to prevent further building. Okay, big deal. The renewed lease, it just goes on about this lease dispute and so on and so forth. But again, we can see Tlaib just jumping in. It's not bad enough that she's got 1 foot in her mouth. She's gonna go for two. This is just getting so ridiculous. Yeah, just catching up on the University of Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, UPenn. I apologize. I said it was Penn State. It was not Penn State. It was UPenn. So, anything to say, Ancel?
I'm here.
Yeah. Got anything to add? I mean, I've been running on for an hour and a half.
What's there to add? I'm just sick about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just...
That's why they have to keep on going, because they're going to get blamed anyway, so... Yeah,
and I think next week we're going to take a look at these, along with what's going on in Israel. We'll be looking at what's going on in the anti-Semitic frame worldwide. what we're seeing in other countries as well as the United States. If it's going up almost 400% in the United States, you can bet it's gone up even further in Europe.
It's all over the world.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what to say to this stuff anymore. I mean, we've got, it just comes out every day. There's more and more of it. Polish Prime Minister extinguishes the menorah in the Polish Parliament. I mean, that's how bad it's getting. Do anything to make a statement against the Jews. So anyway, it's just great. Okay. Despite the anti-Semitic remarks, Harvard announces we're keeping our president. Harvard votes to keep President Claudine Gay in position. She says, say she is the right leader to help our community heal. Yeah. It depends on the context, right?
Yeah. And these are our future leaders.
These are the people that are teaching our future leaders. This is scary. I mean, seriously.
It's more than scary.
Yeah, it is. I'm just catching up on the. Billions of endowments. Yeah. So anyway, as a member of the Harvard Corporation, we today reaffirm our support for President Gay, continued leadership on Harvard. And if you want to watch something truly horrific, watch these three in front of Congress duck every statement, every time they are asked to denounce anti-Semitism and the genocide of Jewish people, how they sidestepped it and walked around it and turned it around to something else.
Just a bunch of Nazis.
Yeah. Oh.
Never thought I'd see that day.
Seriously.
That's in the United States. But
I mean,
like you said.
We have three major universities, and there are other universities that are on the bubble too. They just didn't get called in front of Congress. I mean, these big universities. I mean, I tell you what, people, it's time to stop sending your kids to college. Seriously, they come out of college with a 2-year or 4-year degree that is absolutely worthless. Out there in the real world, it's absolutely worthless. I mean, you want to do your kids right, send them to a trade school. They'll learn a trade, they'll get paid while they're learning, and when they get done, they'll have no debt, and they'll walk right into a job that pays them good money.
Can I ask you something?
Sure.
What is not on your phone, on Google, on your cellular phone is your university. You can find anything and everything you want. You can teach yourself on that.
Oh yeah. There's plenty of information out there.
But we have this. University?
Yeah, we've had this, and it's become a popular thing recently. I've been seeing a lot of ads for it talking about the paper ceiling. That people who are extremely well qualified can't get the job because they don't have that degree from a college. And it doesn't matter how good they are, how much experience they have, because they don't have that piece of paper from a college that says that, they got a degree, they got indoctrinated into a bunch of leftist crap, that they can't, they aren't in line for these jobs. And it's becoming a big push to get people to, number one, to stop relying on these universities for skilled people, because you're not going to get them, number one. And number two, to start looking at these trade schools and people who go in and get themselves educated and stuff like that, start depending on people's performance or meritocracy rather than a piece of paper that really means nothing. I don't care if you've got, yeah, I've run into this before, do you have a degree? Well, we need somebody with a degree. Well, what does the degree have to be in? Doesn't have to be in anything specific. You just have to have a degree. So if I come in and I have a degree in medieval gay rights poetry, that somehow makes me qualified to do a job in marketing or engineering or something like that, well, most of these places say yes. I mean, we're talking about, places like General Motors, Ford, Chrysler, Rockwell, Boeing. You don't have that piece of paper, no matter how good you are, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of sad.
It is. It really is. Well, like I said, next week we're going to go in. We're going to look at a little more in depth about anti-Semitism around the world. We're actually going to go back a bit. We're going to go back to, let's say, the Obama administration, when a lot of this actually did begin.
That's where it started.
Yeah. And OJT. Yeah. I mean, when I was at General Motors, we had the apprenticeship program had a OJT component to it, which was really great. I mean, again, you came out of the apprenticeship in these programs with a journeyman's card, which means you could carry that thing anywhere, and you made good money, because you were skilled and you knew what you were doing. Imagine that. Okay, so
imagine coming in with a degree and know nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I've seen plenty of that. Okay, well, listen, I'm going to turn you down here for a moment, and we're going to close out the show here. Stay on, though. Okay, I want to thank everybody for being here again tonight. I hope you got some information to fight some of the untruths and misinformation that's going on out there. Again, next week we're going to look into a little more in depth into the rise of anti-Semitism, not just in the U.S. but around the world. Until then, everyone, don't forget, tomorrow night is the Torah study, Parsha Maketz, and then Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern is the Kabbalat and Mariv, the Shabbat service. At that point, unfortunately, Hanukkah will be over. I should also mention that tonight started the Rosh Chodesh Tevet, and wish you all a Chodesh Tov. Shabbat morning at 10 a.m. is Shachrit and Musaf service. Monday is Zeta Story Corner, and then right back here again on Tuesday, and we will, what did I do? I turned my camera off? I turned my camera off. What did I do that for? I don't know. Anyway. So, and then right back here on Tuesday for the Rabbis Discuss. Until then, everyone, we'll say Hag Sameach Hanukkah, a Hag new month, Rosh Chodesh, and Laila Tov.